we've been listening to music and talking about what music is and why it affects you and how strangely abstract it is, and yet what is it that touches us?
That's something I've been thinking a lot about since we brought this up about 3 or 4 days ago. I've woken up in the middle of the night wondering, what is it about music that makes it work? And I've really kind of come to the point that the thing that really makes music work, and it's probably the same for all art, is emotion. And you have to have emotion in the presentation of the music. Let me give you an example. I said, for example, let's take Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto. If it goes da 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 dum, boom da 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 dum, boom da 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 dum, bum 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 bum. There's no emotion in that. It doesn't make you go, wow, that's cool. But if you go bum 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 bum, boom bum bum bum, bum 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 bum, da da da. The reason I picked that particular one is because the first time I encountered that piece of music was in the 7th grade when I was playing in a Catholic school concert band, and we were playing that piece of music, and to me it sounded like la da da dee, la da, and that was funny actually. But then when I finally heard it really well performed at Indiana University, I went, wow, what made that work? And it's the pianist just not just playing the notes, but becoming the notes, becoming the music. That's what makes it work in music. See, I look at art from a performance standpoint. You look at art more from a graphic standpoint, perhaps?
Yeah,
Or
a visual and a spoken word standpoint.
right, exactly. Okay. As a performer, I'm only speaking for myself because that's the one I know the best. That which makes art out of singing opera, for example, is knowing so well your material that it becomes you and you become the art. That when I'm performing, for example, a king or a murderer or a pope or something, I am the pope, I am the king. For example, one time I was playing Turandot, and I played the blind king, a former blind king. And I'm telling you that when I would do that performance, I was blind. I mean, I couldn't see anything. I even if my eyes were open, it's like my focus was not on anything around me because that would have taken away the whole blindness issue. It's like completely unfocused here and being more in tune to what's spoken and being led by an arm or something. But becoming that thing makes it work.
There's no other art form that I can think of where you can have a prodigy. You can have there's never going to be a literary prodigy, but there is a music prodigy.
Well,
Mozart could write at 5.
Right.
No one's going to write a book at 5.
Right.
Uh,
3-year-olds can play the piano. Yeah.
and how is it? What are they? Is it mathematical? What are they? At the essence, what are they chiming into?
What makes music sound good? Is it mathematics? Because it's all based on 220 vibrations per minute for this particular A, and 440 there, and 110 for there, and Pythagoras, said that that's what it was, and that's certainly what Mozart was thinking too. When the Baroque period, which started out very well, it was kind of like a synthesis of the high Baroque, of the high Renaissance, which just got so high that it couldn't do anything else, so it imploded down into this very logical thing that was happening in the Baroque. And then by the time we got to Bach, who just exploited it and took it as far as it could go, and then the Rococo ran into it, and it turned into like this roller coaster of music, and then all of a sudden that synthesized down, and it became very classical again, and does that make sense?
Yeah, because it means that it's always moving and it's building on itself and
Right.
falling apart to simplicity. So I guess uh, great art is always a combination of complexity and simplicity. Complexity looking for simplicity, and simplicity then looking for complexity.
I was have been thinking the last couple of years about the Big Bang Theory. That it exploded, and we're all going out like this, and it's always expanding. But to me, it's like we're all on bungee cords, and all of a sudden it's just going to go, and it's going to happen again. And I wonder if we're living in the first or the fifth, or who knows how long it's been going on. I mean, does that make sense to anybody else besides me? That maybe the whole world is just, the whole universe is just a bunch of bungee cords?
No.
Yeah, probably not.
We're making some assumptions that art is always a combination of the past, the present, and the future, to be in the now. The artist is always working in all three realms. To understand the future, one turns to the past as a bookmark, and that's how you navigate the now. Deciphering the now and anticipating the future is the artist's job. The art one looks at, depending on the zeitgeist that one is in, you tend to look at art that kind of reflects a present moment that you're in. It seems like certain art selects you at a moment. The art that has selected us, that we've been talking about over the course of the last few years, has been Rise and Fall of the City of Mahagoni, the Threepenny Opera, and Lulu. All, I would say, rather dark, absurdist, darkly humorous texts where the artists involved brave some risks to put their work out. They were shooting real bullets.
Right, exactly.
Let's examine the text that we've been looking
Okay.
at. Let's start with Threepenny Opera. Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill.
Right.
Early 30s.
Yeah, that period between the wars, I think.
Where absurdity comes up is where the big lie, the corruption at the top, corruption at the bottom, economic unrest, and everybody's trying to survive. That's where we are in that.
When we talk about Threepenny Opera, the first time anybody ever hears about Threepenny Opera is long after they've heard about Mac the Knife.
Right.
If we go back to Mac the Knife, when Bobby Darin sang it back in the late 50s, I guess it was in the late 50s when he oh, the shark deer has such teeth, dear. You listen to it and you go, that's a really cool song, Nobody really listens to the words and realizes what's going on, that Mac the Knife is a guy, a murderer, he's a guy that goes around and kills people, and that's why scarlet billows start to fly and drew all of his money after all of his hard-earned money, and everything else. It's like horrible, but it was like, that's what Threepenny Opera is. It's like very funny to us.
And he was the man who was surviving.
Right.
He was the ultimate survivor. That's what's absurd and ironic about it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a certain kind of nobility about what he did. I mean, he did it very well. He's very clean about it. It's like, it's your time. Okay. It's
No
my time.
one saw nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get into Mahagoni. Which I was lucky enough to have done a really interesting, bizarre production of that, directed by the great Jonathan Miller, who was, he was a very interesting character. He had a huge hawk nose, and he was a very, very well-known doctor of neurology, but he also was the director of the old Vic Theater. He came walking back into to a rehearsal one time, and he had just come over from England, and he said to me, "You know, I just had the strangest walk." He said, "I walked around the neighborhood. I didn't know where I was, and you know, it must be garbage day." And he says every place was garbage cans. He said, for a moment I thought I was in Lagos. and we both just laughed about that. But I don't think that a lot of people would see the humor in that, but just was Lagos.
Then we get to Lulu
Oof.
and Albenberg. And this is, we together went and saw the William Kittredge adaptation for the New York Met.
Right.
Then we went back to Lulu with Louise Brooks.
Right.
And with Kittredge using the Louise Brooks and the G.W. Pabst text as his basic backdrop.
Right. That was from the silent film by.
Again, another thing interesting in art is that a silent movie to us looks like something old.
Right.
But Picasso still looks modern, but silent movies look old, and yet that is as new of art as anything that's in modernism.
Right, exactly.
Which was really interesting. And so, again, Kittredge used that for his opera. So it's really interesting to me how one medium jumps to another medium, how all of that works.
Little things that he was adding to that, like first the very expressionism of the costumes, you know, just the black and the white and strange pictures, you know, female genitalia on her costume and that sort of thing, you know. But also things kept flashing very quickly, kind of like the flicker of an old black and white, you know, silent film.
He used those brush strokes with the black all over, taping it up, and he said it's like the equivalent of a razor cutting at the flesh, you know. So it was just amazing. But again, really redolent of feeling it at this moment. You know, this is why this art seems to be choosing us at this time.
Beautiful film, that Lulu. You know, interesting opera. Alban Berg. He also came up with another opera called Wozzeck, you know, and the music is, the Romantic period is over, the Impressionistic period of music is over, and all of a sudden we're into this. It's like everything just sort of imploded into this sort of weird, minimalist, atonal kind of thing that was going on there. Very, very interesting art. Very interesting art. Yeah. What makes music work? What makes music funny? You know, why is, you know, that's all, folks. Da, 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 da. What is it about those things that are funny? You know, is it the visual that we put to them? But at the same time, we listen to a scherzo. You know, a scherzo means a joke, a musical joke, and listen to Ferdy Groffet's. You know, it's funny. It's just weird. What is it about it? Why is it funny? Why the melody? Is it mathematical? Is it the beat? It's the imagery.
What I'm listening to right now is Shostakovich's Fifth,
There's a
which
funny
is
piece.
Again full of irony. It's full of duplicity. It's dealing with the Stalinist state. It's dealing with the big lie. It's dealing with the terrors. And it's fully expressionistic. So it's as if a confession and a mirror to Stalinism. And Stalin enters. You know, you hear in the music when Stalin enters, and it's totally absurd, and it's humorous, and it's buffoonish. And so it allowed him this personal expression. He was also able to tell the critics it was something totally different, so that they could hear something totally different.
Yeah.
But the audience itself recognized their experience in this music. How alchemical and magical is that? How strange is that? Because you're making an abstraction. You're speaking a language through abstraction. And yet we feel and we hear and we
Yeah.
understand. But then did we, until we had, until we did have these explanations and could hear. I mean, when that work came out in the West, because we didn't understand the full implications of what the terrors were in Russia, the American and European critics really dismissed
Yeah.
the work as something else,
Right,
because they
exactly.
couldn't. It wasn't speaking to them.
You know, I watched a movie 2 days ago called. It was recommended to me by Ken.
Yeah.
You know, called Mao's Last Dancer. You know, and it starts out in communist Maoist China. You know, and there's a scene where this whole Maoist group comes to watch an opera performed, and it's a beautifully performed by these dancers and everything. But they say it doesn't tell anything about our struggle. It doesn't tell anything about our, and you know, and all of a sudden it switches, and now they're doing a ballet that's everybody's in their uniforms and but they're still doing the same movements, and it was very interesting. You know, that's kind of what Shostakovich was going through, is he wanted to. It was like a fan dance. You know, he couldn't really show his whole naked self. You know, just kind of flirting with it. You know. There was a curtain between us, you know, this iron curtain between us. We had no idea.
So how does that even work
How-
in music as well?
Genius.
Because now you can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's explained to you, you go, ah, exactly. Amazing. Life is, I don't know, life is really strange like that, isn't it? There's constantly, it's not what it seems, and then it is what it seems, you know, and then ultimately, there's such a backstory, always such a backstory, that you really need to know the backstory.